and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So they gave us from the start.
I just said what everybody can join. So for roll call, we have Mr. Lito is out, Mr. O'Rourke is out, and Mr. Favreck is out. I think that's it. So there'll be 7 council members. Any comments on the consent calendar? Mr. Kapoor?
Just under the special meeting, under the September 21 special meeting minutes, page 3, it's kind of half the way down the page. It says Councilmember Kapoor question if the Easton Town Attorney, Alan Dunsby, that should be first selectman. Alan Dunsby's the first selectman, not town attorney. That's it.
Okay.
Just want to make sure it's.
Anything else? So I'm passing the consent calendar unanimously. On to communications.
As amended.
As amended, thank you. Communications, A, memo from the police chief to town council dated September 28, 2016, regarding a donation to the police department. B, memo from the library director to town council dated September 28, 2016, regarding a donation to the library. C, memo from senior citizen director to town council chair dated September 29, 2016, regarding donations to the food pantry from various residents and businesses. D, memo from the tax collector to town council chair dated October 3rd, 2016, regarding the request for refunds. E, memo from the first selectman to town council chair dated October 4th, 2016, regarding the bequest for a K-9 unit for police department. F, memo from the first selectman to the town council chair dated October 4th, 2016, regarding a bid waiver request for a tractor. G, memo from the first selectman to the town council chair dated October 4th, 2016, regarding a bid waiver request for skid steer. H, memo from the first selectman to the town council chair dated October 4th, 2016, regarding a bid waiver request for 2 vehicles from Crowley Ford. I, memo from the first selectman to the town council chair dated October 4th, 2016, regarding a bid waiver request for a backhoe. J, memo from the first selectman to the town council chair dated October 5th, 2016, regarding donations to various town departments and programs. K, memo from the first selectman to the town council chair dated October 5th, 2016, regarding the FFY 2014 Homeland Security Grant Program. And lastly, L, letter of opinion from town attorney to first selectman dated October 6, 2016, regarding Pepper Street reconstruction project / project authorization letter. So that takes care of communications. Public participation. Anybody wish to participate publicly? Seeing nobody, I'm closing that. I don't believe we have any appointments tonight, correct? Okay. On to action items. A, Town Council Committee on Finance, Education, Health, and Public Safety Matters. So as the chair of FEPS, I met with Mr. Manjos. There's no new news in terms of decision about Chalk Hill. He said the decision should and will be made, he hopes, by Christmas. The transfer funds for the closeout of the year is being done. They're working on it. There were 2 auditors here before when I came in. 3, medical reserve is not looking good. So you know how the teachers insure themselves, but the town backs them. So the agreement to backstop it, if they have to, they'll put up a reserve and they'll create a special backup reserve. That's all I have on finance. Education, Mrs. Kansky? Okay. Health, Mr. Kellogg?
The Board of Health did meet last week. I think the relevant council items are that there, excuse me, I can't recall if I reported this at the last meeting or not, so I apologize. They have drafted a public pool ordinance that has been forwarded on to the LNA subcommittee for their input, so that will be coming to us shortly. And the other council-related matter was an agreement to bill through Anthem for Health Department services. That is on our agenda for later on, so I won't belabor that. And we also, I had forwarded to them a draft ordinance that was received through FEPS on massage establishments from the police chief. I forwarded that to the Board of Health for Board of Health input as it references, that draft references that. So I do have some feedback that we can discuss when we get, we'll discuss that at FEPS.
Okay. Going on to, might as well do EMS?
EMS met the last week of September. I've reported previously that they were sending out an RFP for their contracted services. My understanding is that was still awaiting the town attorney's blessing on some language. So that is underway. So that is a future contract that we will see once that process completes. I don't believe there's any other matters coming before us that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think off the top of my head.
And then for public safety, I spoke with Fire Marshal Davin. The department is waiting. This Thursday, the bid will be opened, and they're anxiously awaiting who the manufacturer will be for the new apparatus. And they had an open house on Sunday. It wasn't very well attended, but I'm sure it's because it was raining. Going on.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Just a quick question. For this committee, I believe fire is under here, the fire departments.
Okay, with that, I would just,
It's just a general question. I saw in the Courier last week that there was a property transfer from the Monroe Fire Department to the state of Connecticut for $40,000. Does
I
anybody
bet-
know anything about that?
I bet they sold back one of the old fire trucks, but I don't know that.
It was property transfer.
There's property.
Okay, so I'll.
It's just a
call-
general question.
I'll
I
call
didn't-
them up.
I didn't see what it was about.
So property transfer from fire department to the
Monroe
state?
Fire to state of Connecticut.
Property
Okay.
can be vehicle.
I thought it could be, well, yeah, property could be a vehicle, is what Mr. Reed is saying. That's the only thing I can think of. But you know what, I will get you an
Not saying it
answer.
is, but-
If I get an answer tomorrow, I will put it out to all 9 of us.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll do an email. Okay, and then, let's see, anything, Mr. Rooney, from the police?
No, I spoke to Captain White, and there's nothing pertaining to council at this time, thank you.
Okay. So going on to B, Town Council Committee on Planning and Zoning, Public Works and Park and Recs. Mr. Reed?
Thank you. We actually met just before our last council meeting. We have not met since. I mean, I think as everybody knows, the turf field had its ribbon cutting ceremony last Friday night. It went very well, very successful game played. I think everybody was happy to play on that new turf field. In addition, I have not had a chance to talk to Chairman Lito yet about having the Economic Development Commission spokesman come here. Mr. Kapoor, I haven't had a chance to speak to him about that yet, so I do owe our subcommittee that conversation. The conversation's around, do we want to have maybe once a quarter or once a month or something, just like a more of a cadence where the EDC can come here and be recognized on what they're doing so that they can speak firsthand as opposed to the game of telephone through us. So I'll speak to Chairman Lito about that, but that's all I have for this update.
Okay. Mrs. Martin, Town Council Committee on Legislative and Administrative Matters, anything?
We didn't meet tonight, no.
Okay. All right, going on Strategic Planning Committee, Mr. Kellogg?
The committee has not met since our last meeting. I did, however, receive late last week, I believe Thursday, a follow-up email from Ms. Lombardi in regards to the part-time pay plan and the information we were looking for. So, given we have some movement on that, I will be scheduling another meeting. But I've gotten no other information on other items such as chalk hill or anything else. So
Okay,
we will schedule a meeting though on at least the pay plan.
thank you. So EMS Facility Work Group?
Again, we have not met since last council meeting. We are still awaiting the next phase, the next report, that deliverable from our consultant, the architectural consultant.
Okay. First Selectman's update. First Selectman is not here, so are there any questions or anything that I can reply back to him?
There are, again, 4 bid waivers
I saw them.
with somewhat the standard,
So you'd like him to report at the next meeting?
none of them going out to bid again.
Okay. I saw them and I thought of you. All right, on to unfinished business.
I'll do
So,
it in the next one. Keep going.
okay, so Chalk Hill updates. Mr. Howard, do you want to speak on something about Chalk Hill or just in general?
Not in general.
We all got the letter, so.
Thank you, Chairman Pellis. So we had a discussion as a commission last Thursday, which generated a letter to you folks. The commission also asked me to attend the meeting to see if you folks had any questions on the letter. Basically, you have a town building, which, once it ceased to be a school, only came in for a special exception permit for 2 classrooms to be used as a daycare. And I also think there were 2 rooms for EMS training. Since then, the commission has received neither a municipal referral from this body for use of the building, nor has the commission received any application or appointment before the commission for use of 375 Fan Hill, which I would note for the record is a 94,000 square foot building on a, I believe, 8-acre parcel, which includes parking lot and fields. And none of that has come before the commission. So the commission was made aware of a health fair from the town of Monroe, I believe, Social Services Department for October 20th. Again, in a building which has no permits, which brings me to you folks here tonight. The town of Monroe has no exemption from its own permitting process and its own regulations. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, with one zoning enforcement officer and the resources you folks give us, is trying desperately to move through getting over 6,000 properties, some of which are in major need of compliance of the regulations. And we're looking for the town of Monroe to be a leader in that area, as opposed to one of the folks who we have to spend our time with. Additionally, I would note for the record that 375 Fan Hill Road is not the only property which you need a permit for. Apparently, the food pantry never received a permit. The Discovery Zone, when all that was put together, the zoning, the underlying zone of that property is incorrect. The Discovery Zone underlying zoning is being worked on. It's a little bit more complicated because there's a relationship with the state. We just can't go out and change the zone, but I have been told that is in progress. And over on Cutler's Farm Road, the auxiliary parking lot for Wolf Park was never permitted as well. That was subject of discussion when Parks and Rec Director Cooper, I believe last January, submitted an application to the commission. We pointed out that we could not calculate the parking because there was no permit for the parking lot. The commission is still awaiting a special exception permit. Also, the Wetlands Commission is waiting for a wetlands permit. These are applications. I have no idea what has taken so long. Typically, something like this should only be 1 or 2 months. But you would have to ask Parks and Rec Director Cooper. As I said, I'm here because we wrote a letter on Chalk Hill. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help.
Did you get a letter back
On what?
from Mr. Fabric about the 375 Fan Hill?
We just got it today.
Well, no, I just said, this was delivered to you folks,
Okay.
probably around lunchtime today, so I think it's a little early to
Oh, it's
expect
October 11th,
a
okay.
response.
Mrs. Kansky?
You've mentioned all of these. Whose responsibility is it ultimately?
Town of Monroe.
Well, yeah, the town of Monroe, but it's not up to council, is it? Is it not up to these first selectmen or the departments or?
Well, as you'll note in my letter, I did mention that a number of the issues predate the current administration, and the current administration is aware of them, and there are things being done to move these properties through the process. One of the things you have to understand is that when it comes to zoning and zoning enforcement, we do not function like a police officer with a squad car and arrest powers. And our aim has been to bring people into compliance. It is the same end result for the property, and it is less costly to the town of Monroe. A number of these things happened, whether by error or omission, years ago. I have no idea. nor do I have an interest in dwelling on that because it doesn't help fix the problem. As I said, Mr. Vavrick is aware of them. I know there have been conversations regarding the discovery zone, but as I said, there's a partnership with the state. The state therefore has to do certain things. We then get an application for a zone change from, I believe it's RAA, to change it to residential and farming. And then that piece is in good standing. The food pantry, that 8-acre parcel, when Massac High School was just last renovated, the parcel needed to be split, so Massac actually has the land associated with the new driveway and the new fields. The food pantry, which occupies the building, needed to be permitted. But again, you folks are having discussions where you show in your own documents you're considering moving the food pantry. So again, these are things that flow through the first selectman, the town council, the board of finance. You folks have a municipal referral authority. You folks have a budgetary authority. So I recognize that these things take time. I think that the chief new thing here with this health fair on the 20th is that even in your own documents, work that I've read that Mr. Kellogg did and that you folks have been a party to and the first selectman has, there is a recognition that Chalk Hill needs permits. And we're holding an event, and we have 5 other buildings. So it's time for folks to figure out what they're gonna do.
Mrs. Martin?
I remember when the Discovery Zone went in, what, 15 years ago, maybe?
95, 2000, somewhere in there?
Yeah, at least.
Yep.
Why would we just be hearing of this now that they have not appropriate permits?
Mrs. Martin, I could not answer to what was done or what was in the minds of folks back in 1995.
But from 1995 to 2017, to my knowledge, that's the first time that this body anyways heard about it.
Yes, this is the first time you are probably hearing about this.
And that would be the same for the food pantry. I don't remember a food pantry discussion or Chalk Hill, I guess you'd term it new.
So there's 2 things. I'm pointing out there's a number of outstanding issues, which as I understand it, are slowly working their way through the process. As I said, you may determine that you want to use Chalk Hill and put a food pantry in Chalk Hill, at which point it's a waste of time and energy to go for a special exception permit for the existing structure. Does that, like I said, I'm here primarily because what's going on in Chalk Hill on the 20th is kind of a new step. It is today, it is those of us in this room, those of us who are elected and volunteers for the town of Monroe, and we recognize, I think all of us, that Chalk Hill doesn't have a designation yet.
Right. Oh, we certainly do, yes.
Right. So I think what I'm trying to do is bring up the example that there are some things that the town has to work through, and the town is, but Chalk Hill is a little different.
Chalk Hill is a different animal because it's a little more current. Some of the other things are pushing 20 years
Yes.
old, maybe.
Yes.
And like I said, this is probably the first time we've heard about it. The event that's going on at Chalk Hill, that's a health department event?
No,
Yeah.
the health department's participating, to my knowledge, but it is not their event. I believe it is the
My understanding
Community and
is
Social Services, I
Social
believe.
Services is putting it on.
Social Services, okay.
And you know, we have 5 other buildings that can host this event.
Right.
So again, it's trying to identify the fact that, okay, the town has in the past had a few things that it needs to fix. That's why I'm bringing them up for you now. And I'm more than happy to go into as much detail as you want on them. However, Chalk Hill is in front of you, and you know that you shouldn't be using it for anything.
Right.
And yet we're using it, which is why the commission has asked for the letter and my presence here tonight. Because that's different.
And I mean, I think we probably all appreciate that. My concern as a council person would be that that event taking place didn't come through us, wasn't authorized by us or suggested by us or something, we certainly need to be aware of this and working together with, everybody else. But who else, have you gone to whomever can make this change or make it
Regarding
proper?
the event, the
For
upcoming
example,
event,
yes,
the letter came out to the first selectman and yourselves today.
okay. And to the Wolf Park, the parking lot thing,
Mhm.
my understanding was that Park and Rec was aware of their request, your department or your commission request for a special permit.
Mhm.
They were made aware of that.
They originally came to us, you have
With the plans
you have an
and stuff.
inheritance, which you have chosen to spend on 2 new fields over at the park.
Mhm.
When the special exception permit was brought to the commission, one of the most important elements of any of those applications is parking. Since your auxiliary parking lot does not exist in the permit world, it therefore does not exist. And therefore, when we take a look at adding new fields, how many cars that might generate and where those cars are going to go, we had no ability to process the application. Because on the other side of the coin, if we process the application and people start parking on the side streets, now we have an issue. And we have a very big issue, because if something happens from a litigation standpoint and you allowed the use without having the parking lot calculation in your record, now you've got an issue. So,
But when they presented the parking lot concept to you, they were made aware by your commission that they needed to apply for the special.
when they came to us for the fields,
Yes, that's what I meant.
it was
to say.
suggested that the application be withdrawn,
Mhm.
which they did. They were then supposed to turn around, and I don't know why it's going on 8 months, but they were supposed to turn around, hire an engineering firm to do those things which one must do to fill out, to have an application. And that has not come to the commission yet,
Okay, and that's been 8 months.
give or take.
Mrs. Kansky, do you have a?
Yeah, Mr. Hare, I'm a little confused because, I used to work here. And when special permits were needed, the planning and zoning department would come to the first selectman and say, you need a special exception permit. When it became a municipal referral, that always was a reminder or told by the planning department that a municipal referral was made. We don't legislate that. It comes to us and then we act on it. So I don't know who's dropping the ball, but don't you think the planning and zoning department should be informing the selectmen that special exception permits are needed for these things?
They have, I have.
Oh, okay.
That has been done. And as I said, the pace at which these repairs get made are not the same pace at which the repairs get made when you have a leak in a ceiling or a light bulb that's out. As I said, if you're going to move the food pantry, what's the rationale to have a special exception permit for the food pantry? 0, correct? Okay, so you've got a lot on your plate that actually crosses with land use. And once you decide what you're going to do with Chalk Hill, well then, there's a number of things that'll come off your plate. So like I said, if you look at the backlog issues that I brought up, the parking lot, the Parks and Rec director is aware of what he has to do. The food pantry and the discovery zone, those 2 items are, one is basically on hold pending what you do with Chalk Hill. The other is being worked through, as you know, Mr. Alpigan volunteers his time for the discovery zone. He is aware of the issues there. He has had contacts with people to try and get that moved forward.
Mr. Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, thank you, Mr. O'Hara, for your letter and for the commission's bringing this to our attention. I have two things I'd like to say. One is that, so you were correct in that the strategic planning committee, we clearly outlined many of the issues surrounding Chalk Hill, and one was that before anything could happen there were zoning issues that need to be addressed, and I believe the special exception permit was one item that was specifically itemized, and
We had met, I'm sure you recall.
we did, yes, we met, and I believe our final report indicated that, so it's a little concerning that the process hasn't happened, and I guess my overarching concern is that, once again, we're dealing with Chalk Hill in a piecemeal fashion and not in a overall, comprehensive plan. And I'll, I think I'm probably, I might be probably preaching to the choir here, so I'll just leave it at that. I just strongly feel that we need to finalize a comprehensive plan and make decisions on that facility and stop the kind of the ad hoc one-offs and get a comprehensive plan. So I'm not sure what the issue is in regards to this current event. I was aware an event was occurring. I wasn't aware it was at Chalk Hill until very recently. So it is a little concerning to me that we're holding events there without really understanding the overall game plan. The second item I just want to say is for the record that, I really strongly feel that the town of Monroe needs to play by its own rules. So I think it's incumbent upon us to at least send that message that we would hope that these issues would be acted upon expeditiously. And we understand, it sounds from what you're saying that a lot of these are long-standing, that there's work has kind of progressed incrementally, but it just hasn't gotten over the goal line in some of these cases. So I would hope that we could bring whatever resources to bear that are needed to finalize them, because it sounds like some of these have been hanging out for far too long, and certainly, as you said, I don't know how we can expect the rest of our community to play by the rules if the town isn't going to do the same.
Anything else,
I
Mrs. Martin?
mean, I think something that your commission has been waiting for 20 years is probably stretching the limits of working through the system. That's a pretty slow process.
One of the keys, if any of you ever decide to go over to planning and zoning, is patience. But again, as I said previously, I cannot comment, and I have served with who are involved in the current situations, and I am not here in any way, shape, or form to say anything negative about those people, because those people have made a lot of good improvements to this community since I've been here. But things happen, and we find out about them, and we should be fixing them. And I do see, however slowly they're moving, things being fixed. So hopefully, now that you folks are a little bit more aware of what's going on, you may put a little bit brighter spotlight on some of those things, and they will get done.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Howard?
Yeah, I echo Mr. Kellogg's sentiments around, thanks for coming here, I appreciate it, Mr. O'Hara. I take your point on patience, but October 20th is coming up pretty fast. Has anybody, like our zoning enforcement officer, gone over there and seen any possible issues with the 20th event? It's not zoned for that, so is there an issue?
I couldn't comment on that, and again, in terms of how enforcement works from the CEO perspective, there actually has to be something going on, and the scheduling of this happens to be when he's at home. But again, I think you are all aware of this. The first selectman is all aware of this. As I stated, you have 5 other buildings which, to the best of my knowledge, having also served on the Board of Education, are community buildings. And when the school day is over, those community buildings are available for community activities.
You're not our town's attorney. That thing is not, that building is not zoned for this.
Correct.
Are we liable? Are we at risk for liability if
Do
something
we have
happens?
insurance there also?
Do you, I mean, do you know, you're A, not our town attorney, you're B, not our first selectman, so I'm conscious who I'm talking to, but you could be considered a fairly educated witness here. Not that you're really a witness,
Fairly.
but, you know, look, the 20th's coming up in 9 days. This town's got 5 other buildings, is there an issue?
Kent won't comment on whether the town is liable, other than,
So this letter's not in timing of the 20th coming up, the impetus of that. Been dealing with it a while, all of a sudden the letter's crossing our bow.
well, the letter's crossing your path now because the commission found out on Thursday.
About
So the
wellness
impetus of the
thing.
letter is the 20th event.
The impetus is in part the 20th, the impetus is, more importantly, everything else.
Can you educate this council on what is the best, I mean, you're in front of us speaking, our first selectman's not here. Speaking informally.
Mhm.
Educate the council on what do we do about that to find out if we're at risk for the 20th, considering we have 5 other buildings that can host this event.
And is the facility insured?
Yeah, so none of us know.
I would direct those.
To me, this is an issue. So I think in the minutes, we've got to absolutely say questions got to get out to first selectmen on what's happening on the 20th. How many people are we expecting? I frequently go there for soccer games, just even on a Sunday. Parking is bizarre. I mean, I don't know.
You talk about your.
Planning and zoning commissioners coming to us. The impetus is the 20th event. Patient man, 20 years. All of a sudden a letter crosses the bow of the council.
Well, let's be.
Probably should have a conversation.
Let's be clear, it's, the 20 years is different from Chalk Hill.
Appreciate it, but it does show a trend in your mindset as a planning and zoning commission,
I see a
especially you,
pattern.
Mr. O'Hara, you see a pattern,
See a
so
pattern.
I do as well, and I just want to make sure the 20th, we're just not liable, you know?
So we'll put in the minutes, Mrs. Casetta.
I'll just,
I don't know if you
I
wanna
think
add to that.
that Mr. Reed raises a very valid concern, that given this is a public event, you know, I certainly want to make sure we're doing things in a safe, not that, you know, obviously the facility is safe, but, you know, if something unfortunate were to occur there, someone get hurt, fall, trip, whatever, we don't want to have some exacerbation of issues because it's not properly permitted there. So, I don't know if this is, I don't believe this is the first time this event's been held.
But we haven't had that building open.
No, I know, I'm suggesting that.
Just there.
Where was it held in prior years?
Do you
Did
know?
they have it one at Massac?
They've had it at the cafeteria at Massac.
Yeah.
That rings a bell to me too.
Cafeteria Massac, I know, I
Perhaps it would behoove the
helped or I
town
was
to
there or whatever.
move it.
And again, the difference here is that your school buildings are considered community assets already. The school buildings have already received their SEP, their special exception permit.
And their insurance.
Again, the neat thing about the Planning and Zoning Commission is I deal with regulations, I don't deal with insurance, I don't deal with money. Either the thing fits the lot by regulation or it doesn't fit the lot by regulation.
I have one last question, I suppose.
I beg your
Would that be
pardon?
okay? Not to keep, you've taken a lot of your time. Sure, an Alabama game is, you're getting ready for the next one.
Saturday,
You need
3
to prep,
o'clock.
you need to prep, it takes time. Just very quickly, moving off of Chalk Hill, which I know that's the reason why you were here tonight, but I do appreciate we had some questions outside of that zone. You did say that you've spoken to the first selectman of the first selectman's department heads about a list of, I'll call them infractions, call them what you will, a lack of retention. You spoke to the first selectman of those. I'm not gonna ask for an audit trail, but do you have a list of those you can provide us? So that when we are talking about strategy, we can ensure that, why would we go after an SCP on the food pantry if it's moving? Or why go after something in Chalk Hill in a very zoned in, honed in way when really we need it for the whole, do you have that list? And I'm not asking for all 6,000 properties, I'm talking about the ones that would impact us strategically.
Essentially, from the municipal standpoint, it is the auxiliary lot on Cutlass Farm Road. It is 375 Chalk Hill Road.
Okay.
It is whatever number on
Food pantry,
on Monroe Turnpike, which is the food pantry.
parking lot.
and Web Circle, which is the Discovery Zone.
Yeah. All right, so it's a
I have
handful,
all those.
literally.
Yes.
Okay, got it, that's fine.
Look,
You have the detail behind it as well.
There may be others. The thing about zoning violations is, we could probably get in a bus right now and drive around town and find them, businesses, residential, probably our own properties. But again, the concern from the commission is that we know that you're working on these other items, but this is a new item. It is an item which, we all got behind helping our neighbors in Sandy Hook. We all knew that our neighbors in Sandy Hook were leaving this year to start their new journey. So we need to concentrate on what it is we're going to do with 375 Fan Hill Road. I would also point out there's a AT&T truck in front of Fawn Hollow. That AT&T truck was placed there because when we helped our neighbors from Sandy Hook, the cell service was a little sketchy. And people thought that would do a lot to keep people
More secure.
more secure. There is nothing that allows that truck there, and that truck should be gone. So I would also bring that to your attention. And yes, that has been brought to the attention of the CEO and the first selectman.
So liability, or just shouldn't be there, like an attractive liability? What was the
It's not
CEO?
permitted by the zoning regulations.
Got it, okay.
It's probably in the front yard setback, which you're not allowed to,
Yeah.
and it's also it's basically a mini cell tower.
Yeah, got it.
Again, it was there under an extraordinary circumstance, which I think we all recognize. We did a really good thing for our neighbors. That time is done, and that truck should no longer be there.
Anything else?
No.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention. As always, if you need anything from the commission, let us know that there are a number of new buildings opening in town. Goddard School, Goodwill, Axle Plastic, Mondial Automotive. We've approved Karuba, which has not gone into the ground yet.
And they all have suspension, they all have the right permits.
Oh yeah, they got their permits, and they're, joining the ranks of taxpayers here in the town of Monroe.
Is that a Cumberland Farms going in on?
That's
25?
Cumberland Farms going in front of Clock Tower.
Mhm.
CVS's.
CVS, as you note down the street,
And
is
Panera's.
moving out of the Century Plaza. I hear rumors about stuff moving into the Century Plaza. But as you look around Monroe, this is just a zoning plug here for a second. As you look around Monroe, we're building. We've got a lot of applications coming in. Commission's working a bunch of late nights to get these things done. The old church on Route 111 is subject of a SEP right now. The commission has asked staff to write a draft approval letter, so that building, which has been sitting vacant since the church left,
The
95?
Methodist Church?
Which church is
World Outreach something.
Oh, Reverend Ward, the beautiful, big, huge building.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on in Monroe. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Miracle Faith.
Huh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
very much.
you.
Mr. Reork, while you're here, can you answer that question about the fire department and the property? David, can you answer the question?
I would guess, but I don't have information.
This is
I
Dave
think
York,
it's-
was the chief of police, the chief of the fire department, Stevenson. Go ahead.
I'm guessing that it's property, literal, real property, that's needed for the roundabout.
That's a-
Oh, right over there.
Okay, but
That's
I will,
what I'm wondering.
but I'll
That makes
call Fire Marshal Davin tomorrow and
I'm
get an
pretty
answer.
sure of that.
Okay, I just thought while you were sitting there, maybe you,
Yep.
okay,
Mrs. Hillis, can I just add one thing to the A on Chalk Hill
sure.
before you move on? First of all, last meeting, we had asked for the July 7th plans, which I don't think we got them. So that's another thing to add to the selectmen's
Yeah, I have it right here.
list. And do we know, does any board know what the next step is? What are we?
So I'll say from my perspective, from whether it comes through strategic planning or comes directly here, we're waiting for formal cost assessment from the Board of Finance.
And that's what I said
That's-
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, because we
So-
can't write a municipal referral without a proposal.
So
No.
that's, we're looking for that kind of, here's the overall number to do anything at that facility. In terms of what basically what the long-term capital, investment would have to be.
And I asked Mr.
So-
Manjos again yesterday. He said the same numbers, 1.8
I mean,
million to raise it and 5 million to renovate
Right.
it.
But those were like, there was a
Right, it's-
conversation between, as the
Right, it's not a-
liaison to find.
It's not
right,
a
it wasn't-
contract.
Right, it wasn't the formal,
Those numbers are not accurate.
Madam Chair?
and I also, so that's one piece, obviously, that we were waiting for Board of Finance, but, not to forget, we're still looking, I think, for a comprehensive, plan from the administration in regards to what they'd like, what we'd like to do there.
That was gonna be a question. How does the Board of Finance determine how much money needs to be spent to do A if we have no idea what A is?
I understand your question, and I think it is a good one. What was posed to the Board of Finance was in the sea of documents that we received to give us their kind of opinion in regards to the minimum capital requirements to operate the facility at all.
Which,
The Board of Finance.
and how, it's an academic discussion at this point because we don't have anyone here to talk to about it,
Right.
but, I mean, how, realistically, how sensible is that even for them to spend a lot of time worrying about it? Because if they came up with, it's gonna cost $45, and then the plan comes out that, you're moving walls, and guess what, it's gonna be $50.
I think you're correct that would be incremental dollars, but I think, before we do anything, have to understand what the initial investment is just to keep the doors open. And I mean, we, as you remember from strategic planning, there was concerns over HVAC, over windows, over boilers. I mean, there were so many infrastructure issues there, unknown code matters. I mean, so I think we had reports, what was specific, the history of this going to board, we have reports from the Fletcher Thompson reports that itemize a whole host of things, and we always tell, well, some of these things may not be necessary, some were addressed, some weren't. That question went back to the first selectman, he responded presumably and there was a package that went back to strategic planning, which was largely those documents, and that's what, my understanding, that was referred to Board of Finance to have them also look at it, so we had some financial numbers that someone else had kicked the tires on, so to speak. But I agree with you that
And-
just that alone does not consider, improvements or build-outs, et cetera, that are very use dependent. So I am in agreement with you in that regard.
And the other thing he said to me the other day was that
And
they hope to do this.
Who would he be?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mandros.
Uh-huh.
Rather than go to the Board of Finance meetings, we meet on Monday mornings.
That's fine.
And he's very good about it, and so am I for that matter. So we do meet, we were there yesterday. But anyway, he said, when I asked him again yesterday, he said he'll have a decision, there'll be a decision, and we will be in on it. There'll be a joint meeting between the
Well,
council and the Board of Finance.
I understand that, and that's
So
great,
he said
the
definitely
coordination, but I'm
by
just.
Christmas. No, I hear you,
The basic
'cause-
question is, what are they deciding?
Right, I hear you,
On
because
what?
it's all of us saying the same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not making a decision, we're just giving information.
Right. And then we'll look at it. All right, so
All right.
I'm going, revisions, I'm going on to B, unfinished business. Revisions to the Code of Ethics, it's not ready yet, so I'm just tabling it, hopefully until the meeting in 2 weeks. Going on to new business, the request for the purchase and training K-9 unit, the police department, so I'll make the motion, because my handwriting is so terrible, none of you are going to be able to read it. So I'm making a motion to approve the bequest from the estate of Kenneth M. Gleesner, Gleszer, of $40,000 towards the purchase and training of a K-9, as well as any equipment related to its training. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kapoor. Discussion. I assume that there was attached documentation from Chief Salvatore, and
Do we know, is it question time? Or do you want to bring it,
No, you can ask whatever you
Yeah.
like.
do we know if this is going in a new vehicle, or we?
No, it's a dog.
No, sorry. Is the dog going in a piece of property? Oh, no. Is the dog when
Does
it
it
comes
get
in?
a referral?
Does it get a municipal referral? Is the dog, do we know from Chief Salvatore, and I don't know, Mr. Looney, if you can tell us this, but I know it costs a lot of money to equip a canine vehicle. They're not typical vehicles, right? So, I know I think we only have one canine vehicle, because one's going out of commission soon. So are we gonna give the canine unit a new vehicle, or do they go in another one? I just wanna make sure we're spending them, not keep spending the money, and that this, if they go into a 100,000-mile car, then you gotta put it, you gotta transfer all that stuff over, goes into a specialty shop. I just kinda wanna make sure we're looking at this thing right.
If I read it correctly, it looks like it's definitely the dog and any equipment related to its training. So I don't think it's a car, I think it's whatever they need to train it. Kevin?
All right, whatever. This is just to accept the money anyways, so.
What
Yeah.
happens with the canines is that they have to go to post, police officer standard and training, for several weeks to be a handler. So what's happening, and I don't know how long that program is, it could be 2 months, it could be upwards of 3 months, if you look at the police salary as well as the dog and the equipment that goes along with it. I honestly don't think, Mr. Reed, that would include a car.
Yeah, I don't think it's a
If
car.
I
No,
could-
no, so, just for the record, I don't think $40,000 is buying a cruiser.
Right.
I am specifically speaking about, I just want to make sure as a follow-up, once the dog is trained, understand, is that dog going into a new vehicle? Is it going into a 100,000-mile vehicle? Is it going into that's what I'm asking. Because I know we cycle vehicles, they become canines, they bounce out, they get decommissioned, another car rolls in. The car is sometimes not new. And again, the cruiser is different when it's outfitted for a
So
canine.
would you like me to find out?
I would love to find out what's happening.
Okay,
'Cause
so,
I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
so if you want to just ask, I know what you're asking, but
Sounds from the memo
we're saying
is-
it's not the canine, you're
This
saying,
memo
is it
doesn't
the,
cover what I'm
Kevin,
asking.
you're saying, is it
Just to
the,
maintain.
is the $40,000 going towards the cruiser, the car? Kevin, are you asking if the $40,000 is
Nope.
going towards?
No.
I'm gonna withdraw my question. I'll talk to Chief Salvatore.
All right, okay.
I would just say, may I?
Sure.
In one of the explanations, it says apparently there's 2 dogs, one is going to be retiring.
Mhm.
So this will keep it at a 2-dog thing, which would, it would stand to reason would be using the existing
Same car.
car.
Which is at 110,000 miles.
All right, so we're going on. So I need a vote on this. We have a second, we've had discussion. A vote on the canine. All in favor of the canine unit?
No. I mean, it's not the canine unit we're voting on.
The donation.
It's the donation.
It's the donation
I'm
of
sorry,
40,000.
Right, I read it correctly. Okay, so all in favor of the donation of $40,000, but the request?
job.
All right, so 7, anybody against it? Passes 7-0. Okay, going on to the 2014 State Homeland Security Grant Program. I'll make a motion to approve the FFY 2014
Mr.
State.
Pellis?
Yeah.
I might be looking at a different agenda, but B is project authorization letter, reconstruction.
I'm
of
sorry,
Highway
that
2.
has been taken off because we all got a letter from Attorney Fraccesini, there's a copy
I
here,
didn't-
Is that
to
this?
say that they did not need, they did not need that. I should have said that because I
Yeah, so we should
crossed it
strike
off.
that from the,
That's right, strike it from the record. Okay, so now I'm going on to, I'll make a motion to approve the FFY 2014 State Homeland Security Grant Program, Region 1. The resolution states, resolved that the town of Monroe may enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security any and all documents which are deemed to be necessary or appropriate pertaining to the 2014 State Homeland Security Region 1 grant, and further resolved that Stephen J. Favrick, as first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of Monroe, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kellogg. Discussion?
Is that where Mr.
I would
York-
assume
just
it-
wanted-
Is that why Mr. York?
Is that why
Yeah.
Mr. York is here?
It is.
I don't have a speech.
I just had one question, if it's okay, and it was really just to clarify. So this a similar grant, I know, came before us several months ago, and I know there were some concerns at the time because we were voting on grants with fiscal years, several years prior to the current fiscal year, and some questions came up. I had hypothesized at that time that it was because I'm familiar that the federal government tends to be very far behind in their release of funds, and I've seen that in other similar grants. So I was wondering if you could either confirm or clarify that hypothesis.
I will
And,
confirm but not clarify.
okay,
It is a mystery to me how we are still, the federal money is still dealing with some, in some cases still 2013,
Right.
and then this is 2014, and we're not talking about 2015 yet.
Right,
We're almost finishing,
Right.
obviously calendar
Right.
2016.
So- thank you. So I just wanted to confirm that there's nothing the town has done here that's, we are not in arrears, we're not late. This is literally us just acting upon the schedule that the federal government is working off of. So,
And sometimes they add in.
right.
A
Correct.
memo like this.
Right. No, certainly, no, this is obviously a standard agreement. I would certainly support it.
And I thank Tanya and Heidi and Ron Bonofsky who dig out numbers that are somewhere lost in, not lost, but they're in the depths of the financial records. And for some reason, FEMA needs to know this, and they've been very forthcoming with that, so we are in order, but we simply need this up.
Very good.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? So all in favor of this motion? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Going on to,
Thank you very much.
Mr. York.
Thank you, Mr. York.
going on to Monroe Health Department contract with Anthem. I'll make a motion to approve the agreement of Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield provider agreement with the Monroe Health Department.
Second.
Okay, so discussion?
So this was, I brought this through from the Board of Health. This is a standard agreement that, so the health department in providing certain services such as flu clinics, other types of vaccinations, those kind of routine services, they are in the process of, as you know, in a previous meeting, there was a Medicare agreement that came forth. This is one with Anthem Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I believe they might be working on some others as well, but this, is here strictly to allow the town and the health department to be able to bill the Anthem Blue Cross for its insured members for those types of services. So it's a fairly, I was told it was a standard and non-negotiable agreement. The first selectman, I did see an email from the first selectman stating that he was not referring it to council because of that, to legal counsel because of that he would ask us to just move it forward, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? So all in favor of this motion? Passes 7-0. Thank you. Lastly, we have public participation. Oh, there's no public. Okay, so I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. It's
So
at,
Adjourn?
okay, it's at just about 8:55.
So moved.
So moved by Kevin, all in favor,
Mr.
7-0. Okay.
Thank you.